Welcome to another edition of the Caregivers Network podcast, the place where family and caregivers come together to learn, grow, and get supported. I'm Reggie Cunningham,
And I am Marlon Phillips.
and each week we explore personal experiences to help us navigate and deal with the challenges of caregiving with confidence.
And whether you're supporting a loved one or working on the front lines, we want you to know that we stand with you. And today's episode is Miss Lori Hall. So, Lori, floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Just for our audience, Lori Hall is the founder and inspiration behind SpIndL, an organization she created because of her experiences with her autistic son. So, Lori, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and the things you've gone through?
Sure. I do have a son that is 22 years old. He's on the autism spectrum. And of course, what we've discovered throughout the years, as many families have, there are not a lot of services out there for the things that we need. And
Mhm.
we've experienced that throughout his whole life. While he was young, we needed ABA or behavioral therapy. It was not in our area, and we never got it. We experienced those things all along. But then when he graduated from high school, we sent him to a transition program because he wasn't quite ready to go straight into college. And this transition program helped navigate starting college and helped with
Mhm.
those independent living skills. He lived in an apartment with a roommate, and we saw a lot of progress in him through the years of school, going through, just general public school. He started becoming antisocial, where he'd been a very social kid, awkward, but social. And by the time he graduated from high school, he was antisocial. What we saw in this transition program that he was in for 2 years after high school was he was becoming social again. He was playing games with the family and with our friends and get togethers. And we just saw a lot of growth. He was in that program, and then we brought him home after 2 years, and he's regressed.
Mhm. So, do you
So
think that's because of the environment change or out of his routine? What do you think?
not having those supports. So we moved him back home to our home. He's sitting on the computer, not comfortable going out and working. He did work part-time for a year while he was in that transition program. And then we brought him home, and he's at home and comfortable in his in his own space on the computer, which he's a technology guy. He's definitely an advanced
Mhm.
technology nerd, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's his comfort place. So he regressed, not wanting to go get a job, not wanting to do anything with friends and family, starting to lose some of those social skills because he wasn't getting the practice. So we saw this regression and not finding the help that we needed. We tried to go to Arkansas Rehabilitation Services. We tried to apply for jobs, and it was just painful. I did work with him going through a certification class, and going through classes is not his thing. He's a
Mhm.
brilliant young man, but taking classes and things that require good executive functioning skills, he just doesn't do well with. So as we're going through this process, I'm realizing we're not the only ones out there
Hmm.
with this problem. The services do not exist where we are. Like I said, we sent him to a transition program after high school in a different state.
Mhm.
And he was 18, and at 18, usually their maturity is behind their peers. So it was hard sending him out of state, knowing, that he really wasn't at the maturity of an 18-year-old.
But was this to a regular school or a school that specialized in
This
transition?
this was a transition program called College Living Experience, CLE, and it was for helping those that have autism to bridge that gap. Those guys that are not quite ready to step into college, even a college's autism program,
Mhm.
this got them to that point. Now, he did not finish school. We decided 1 year into it that we were not going to continue college and that he was going to work instead. And then he worked part-time for a year. But what they had was the life skills coaching. He lived in an apartment setting. He had independence. He was a driver. He had his own car
Oh,
and he was
wow.
new. Now we sent him out there as a brand new driver. He had just gotten his license right before he graduated from high school.
Oh, you're
And
brave.
that was scary. But they had all of the supports in place, encouraging him to understand his schedule for the day. Where you go? And he had the safety checks in the morning and at night. And they would do social activities. They did karaoke. They'd go to movies. They would go to dinner frequently together, all the participants in the program. And they were practicing those social skills that you and I practice every day. So we brought him home and he wasn't getting all of that. So this transition program we saw was somewhat successful for him. It was what he needed. And then we brought him home because it was very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
I know.
So this is a program that is not accessible to families, to most families.
When you say that, you mean financially, just because of the finance?
Financially.
Oh, wow.
And not only that, but we had to send him to another state. And yes, it was extremely expensive. And that's where I just decided one day that if no one's going to do anything about it, I am.
Mhm.
So that's where the idea behind SpIndL came from, was we were not finding services we needed. I had friends with kids on the spectrum going through the same experience. They're at home after high school and there are just no opportunities. They're lucky to get a part-time job somewhere below their skills, below their skill level. And even those that do graduate from college, you may know this, people with autism have an 85% unemployment rate, even for college graduates.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the problem that I am striving to address, is after high school, making sure they can continue their learning and development. Their brains are still growing, and
Right.
Oh, yeah.
they also tend to be a little less mature than their peers. And so they need to continue that learning those life skills. Some of the things our kids just sort of absorb over the years, how to work, how to communicate. These guys don't necessarily just absorb them. We have to explicitly teach them some of these skills.
So can I ask you,
Yes.
what about your mother instincts? I have a godson of mine. He had autism, but his mother, she quit her job. She took care of him up until he went to college. And I think it might have been the same program. But, he had autism, ADHD, but through her daily care and spending time with him, he finished high school. He actually went on to college at VCU. And like you said, they put him in an apartment with everybody else. And he did very well, graduated at the top of his class.
Awesome.
And he was in the film industry is what his degree was in. So he wanted to go back and get a master's. But, they had a shortage on funds. So the point I'm making is now he's at home. But his mother was still very, very clingy as far as, letting him go to college and not just popping in on him and stuff like that. So he is working, believe it or not, as an assistant manager at a restaurant. That's not his passion, but it does, they bought him a car, like you said, just here over the summer, and he's driving back and forth to work, but living at home. So, his mind is to get back into school. And he's very meticulous. I just remember he had a fetish with trains. So every train, commercial, model, he could tell you, about the train, when it came out, when it was manufactured, all the toy companies that make trains, and that's still his kind of fetish today. But to your point, he, I think, would rather go back and utilize his mind. He's very, very smart. As a matter of fact, he came up with our logo that I'll share with you. I just asked him, I said, I want you to think about the caregiving network and caregiving, and I'll forward you what he came up with. Came up with a really, really nice logo, people in it, grandparents and open hands. And I guess just the way they think. So yeah, so I can appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. And that parenting thing. So I can relate to the clinginess. And I was told when he went to see Ellie that, Lori, you're going to have to get a hobby, because that had been my last 18 years
I hear you. Yeah.
was intensive caring for my son. I also I had a full-time career, and I was pretty stressed. That was a long period of time that was pretty intense. And then you take the element out of it that I've spent so much time and energy on, and I was lost for about 6 months. I
Really?
was
Yeah, yeah,
lost.
yeah.
And you grow this bond with these special needs kids. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm close to my other son too, and have a good relationship, but there is something about these special needs kids that you have to put so much intense energy into. There's just a different kind of bond, and it's a little hard to let go.
Yeah, it was for her. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's hard
Yeah.
to
But
let
her
go.
husband was like, hey, he's doing fine. Don't preclude him. We got him down there. Let him stay a couple days. If he wants to call home, he will, but you can't call 3 or 4 times a day. He's got class, and
Mm-hmm.
it took her a little while to just let go. She was about maybe like 45, 50 miles away from where they grew up and where he was in school. But her husband's like, listen, don't just go up there. Give him some independence and make sure it's all right. So I can appreciate what you're saying.
Lori, let me
Yeah,
ask you
I
this:
So to that point about,
while he was in school, and I'm asking you this because Artesia, my daughter, experienced in that they had a peer program with college students that would come and befriend special needs, children, teenagers, and do college type things with them, go to the movies, go out, eat or stuff like that. Was that something that was available to your son?
not that I know of through the school. Now that's actually something we're working on trying to achieve with SpIndL. We would like to find college students that volunteer to come spend time with them as mentors. So that's part of our business model, is we want to have those mentorships available for them. But what I did when my son was in school, because it was difficult having him in just mainstream daycares,
mhm.
mainstream anything. It was
Yeah, yeah,
difficult. He had lots of meltdowns.
yeah.
It was very difficult for him to focus on things. So he was a challenge to put in a regular daycare or classroom.
Mhm.
What I started doing, I guess while he was still in elementary school, probably about third grade, maybe even second grade, I started hiring college students
Mm.
that would pick him up from school, take him home, have him work on, help him work on his homework, help him with his chores, take him to all of his therapy appointments. He had speech therapy and occupational therapy, and they would take him to those. They would work with him. Maybe he had exercises he had to do for those therapies. He even had vision therapy at one point.
Mhm.
So they took him to all of those, because I had a full-time career,
All
and
right,
that was
all right.
helpful to me. So I wasn't constantly having to take off work or whatever. And so they would bring him home. His homework was hopefully done before we got home in the evening. And that was giving me some sanity so that I could come home and make
Mhm.
dinner and do the rest of the caregiving. But when he got older, he's in junior high and high school. And I typically had females that helped us that were college students. And by the way, these were great. These were awesome individuals that helped us, and they were committed. And I found them on care.com.
Oh,
So if
wow.
anybody's looking for something like that, you can go post a job for that. So like you were saying, the mentorships came from the school. I made them. I created those mentorships by finding those people that were college students. That was part of my criteria. I was looking for college students,
Can I
preferably
ask
in
you just
special
a
ed.
question
Sure.
regarding the students? So Reggie has a daughter. and Ebony and Kenny have daughters. We talked about this yesterday. With a guy, it might be a little less concerning, but what was your perspective on if you had a daughter and vetting the person to make sure that everybody was on the same page and there wasn't some ulterior motive relative to your daughter? Would you think you'd feel the same, or how would you vet female if you had a female instead of a son?
So whether it would be a male or female mentor,
Well, the mentor, yeah, the person that's going to come in. I mean, I've learned from Reggie and Kenny that they're very protective of their daughters.
I
So
would
you
be
want to
too.
be cognizant of who's around them and stuff like that. So I would just ask you from a screening standpoint, how would you navigate that if you had a daughter?
I absolutely would be very cautious about that. Um, you don't want to discriminate based on sex. It would have
Right?
to be someone I knew
There you
in
go.
order
Okay.
for me to hire a male to care for my daughter.
Right.
I don't have a daughter, but
Right.
that's how I feel. I know I've been also very careful about that, even with my son.
Hmm.
And I'm not a person that believes that all males out there are out to do harm. That is so not
Well,
true.
let me
It's just being pragmatic. I
enlighten me
mean,
what I
you
found
said
out
you wouldn't
is you
discriminate.
got a
I
daughter.
absolutely would discriminate,
That's
because
my point I
But
want to make.
yeah, but you're not supposed to discriminate, but I would.
I,
Yeah, I
Oh
would
yeah.
too.
I don't care what you're not supposed to do. I'm
Uh,
going to do what's in the interest of my daughter, right?
And
so
my child, right.
Right,
yeah, so
And
exactly.
I've learned this in the last couple of days with fathers with daughters. Like, oh no, I'm discriminating because that's my daughter. So like it
yeah,
or leave it, I'm going to make the final decision on who's around her. So it's
right,
a father thing. It's what it's a father daughter thing.
right. But I will say also with my son, I feel that the girls, the young ladies, are more nurturing. That's just
Yeah,
in our
yeah,
nature.
right.
We're just more
Yeah,
nurturing.
okay,
And
I get
I
it. Yeah.
I had some awesome individuals that cared for him and that were dedicated to him. When he got into junior high and high school, I was able to get a couple of young men to work with him, but
Oh,
I knew them.
mhm.
Even then, I knew them and they helped me. And but the dedication, I mean, they were awesome young men. I love and adore these gentlemen. I still know them today. But I think the natural nature of women is just more nurturing.
Mhm.
So
Well,
Yeah.
part of it
that
is
was just
that,
my experience.
yeah, part of
But
it is that you just have to be a special person to want to spend time with someone with alternative needs, so to speak,
yes,
different needs, things that are
Yeah.
not necessarily, quote unquote normal, right?
right, right. It does require some special patience. And I'm going to tell you a story. Every time we would hire someone to work with him, my husband would walk them through the house and show them where the keys were that they could find so they could get back in the house. Because there's a pretty good chance our son was going to lock them out of the house at some point. So yeah, there was some patience required because of sometimes the treatment he would give them because he
Right.
did have meltdowns and didn't want to do the things they were requiring. And when you put pressure on to do things you don't want to do, sometimes behavior is not the best. And he would have behavior that was not
Yeah.
what everybody wants to deal with. So
You know,
it definitely takes a special person.
it's funny because we talked to Kenny and Ebony, and one of their concerns was that, putting people around you if they're going to assist you with caring for their autistic child that are sensitive to the autism and people that understand
Mhm.
autism, and finding those people has been a little difficult for them. They said even on the treatment side, they're where they are. So
Yeah.
do you agree with that? Is that the situation too?
Oh, yeah. We didn't have family around us. And no, we could not just hand our son off to anyone so that we could go out for dinner or get away for a weekend. My son was probably two or three, and my mom saw the stress that was happening in my marriage. She saw that when she would come to visit, I was an emotional wreck. I was stressed all the time. I was depressed. Didn't feel like I could keep doing this. And I had years to go. I kept thinking, I can't do this anymore. I'm so exhausted. And she saw that, it was also very hard on my marriage. And she started doing this for us every year for a while. She would come to spend a week in my
Yeah.
house and care for my son so that we could go on a cruise
Yes. Yes.
or get away for a anniversary weekend. It was always around our anniversary. And it was the best thing. That first weekend we got away, that first time we were like, that was probably the first time we had gotten away. And I don't remember how many years we'd been married at the time, but 15, the first
Wow.
time we'd gotten away for a
You
romantic getaway.
time, our time. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
we
your
It-
time.
it's
realized,
funny because we talked to Ebony and Kitty about that very thing just
Yeah, we
yesterday.
did.
You know, I couldn't remember the last time we had my wife and I got a chance to go away by ourselves. And
yeah,
I joked that that's the most expensive barbecue I ever received or paid for. Was that
Yeah,
my sister watched my daughter, and she must have been about 5 years old, something like that, and my son was like 2 or 3, and we took a trip to St. Louis, not St. Louis, I'm sorry, Kansas City. And before we landed, there was a call that call home, and my daughter had gotten sick, so we had to fly back to Chicago the next day. You know,
yeah.
and we didn't get to do anything else but go, see the Buffalo Soldier exhibit early in the morning and get some Gates barbecue, that evening. That was it, and went right back to Chicago. So yeah, I understand that. I
But
understand that.
so,
yeah,
but
you
to your
just,
point, we just talked about this with them. So 2 points here. One is that you were blessed to have your mom, somebody that you felt comfortable with
yeah,
in your home first, and second, that also knew their grandchild and your child, that you felt comfortable enough about leaving them.
yeah, she the only one.
Mhm. Well, we talked about this whole scenario just yesterday. Imagine now you got 6 kids and 2 special need kids. And the apprehension is that if I go away, the 4 that are okay are going to be okay. But my 2 special needs, kid was like just adamant. I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't be comfortable leaving them with somebody I didn't know because they're nonverbal. So
Yeah,
you have to have somebody that's around them, like your mother or their grandmother, and they don't have that luxury. So it's been quite a while that one that they haven't just been together, but also in addition to that, letting yourself go emotionally to feel comfortable enough to go. You
yeah.
that mother-in-law, your his grandmother, is definitely a luxury I see when you're
Oh,
taking care of
yes.
autistic kids.
It was such a
Feel comfortable, you
blessing.
can get away and
I
yeah.
think she saved my marriage. She saved our marriage. We needed that so badly to realize, oh, wow.
No, as we've talked to people where the spouses were not quite on board, not so much for the autism side, but uh, my mama had dementia, and she lived with me for 7 years until she passed away. So we talked to and have talked to different people whose spouses, our in-law had to come, my mother had to come move in with her daughter and her husband and their kid, and their spouse, they just weren't feeling it.
Yeah,
We had a situation where a young lady said that her mother had to come live with them, and the husband wasn't wasn't feeling it. So I can appreciate what you're saying about it. It strains a lot of relationships.
yes.
And I'll tell you a jovial story. We talked about a friend of ours. He took care of his wife for 23 years, and she ended up uh, dying of cancer, lung cancer. But they had been married so our comment was, well, it's not that strong. And a person, cancer treatment and stuff like that. If your relationship isn't strong, probably the person is going to leave you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to stay and endure. Your marriage is stressed anyway, and now you come with a serious illness, he or she or whatever. You need to be or have resources in place because a spouse might leave, or
Yeah.
your friend might leave you. So that was a
I,
conversation we had.
like one may not be on board. And I mean, I have to admit, my husband is a wonderful dad. He's a wonderful man. I'm so blessed to have him. But
Right.
he will probably admit too, he kind of checked out. He couldn't fix the problem
Yeah. Yeah.
and he didn't know how to address it. And he kind of left it to me for the most part. I dealt with the schools, I dealt with the babysitters and all of the issues and finding the
Right.
help. And that was stressful on us as well. I
Yeah.
was a
Oh,
little
yeah.
resentful, but
No, it took us a while to find. We had interviewed several people, and just here recently, we started seeing husbands that were involved. So Kenny and Ebony are one. We had a couple other ones where the husband was just like, I want to support my wife because it was her mother.
yes.
And her mother's getting old, but her mother is a pistol. She's got siblings and stuff like that, but her mother is going to probably end up moving in with her husband and their son. And it was just refreshing to see a man come on and say, "No, I'm with my wife 100%. That's my mother-in-law." So much so that even if something happens to my wife, I'll still take care of my mother-in-law. That was first,
That's
and
special.
then second, we talked to a cousin of ours, her and her girlfriend. One is taking care of her father and stepmother, and she's married and got a teenage son. So her husband is like, "Listen, honey, I understand what's going on, okay, but you have us to take care of too," because it was like a 35-mile trip each way to go check on him if you went every day. And plus, she had her own career. So the point I'm making is that it makes things easier if you have a spouse that's going to be there to assist you one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate with my husband that he was supportive of me. Don't get me wrong, we had some hard spots, but he was supportive of me. And he loves our son. He loves both of our sons, of course. And, he was there as a support to me.
Right.
And of course, he, was there for his son. He was present. And even though I handled the most, I hate to use the word burden. I hate to use that word, but I handled the bulk of
Right.
the responsibilities when it came to the special needs of our son. But my husband was there and he
Yeah.
was supportive and he was there. And I can't imagine having gone through it without him.
Wow. So we interviewed three ladies. Two were married and one was single, but she had two autistic children, a boy and
With
a girl.
nonverbal too.
That were nonverbal. And uh, my heart just went out to her because I didn't know how she was managing by herself.
Yeah.
And
It's
the
I
other two had spouses, but they just had cultural differences that kind of lend itself to men being more, that's a woman's thing. It's my kid, but it's a woman's thing, But
Yeah.
it was just nice and refreshing to find some husbands that were fully engaged and realize it's not about me, it's about our kid, So
Right,
kudos to
right.
you guys. Yeah, working
You
it
can
out.
see that how isolating it is, whether you are a couple or a single parent. It can be extremely isolating. Your friends are out with other friends who have kids with things more in common. They have sports in
Mhm.
common or academics or, whatever it is, families tend to get together with other friends that have things in common. And
Right.
they don't always want the kid there that's having the meltdown all over
Right.
their house.
Or understand, you know? So
Yeah, and,
it,
and family members can be just as rough too.
Oh, yeah. And they don't always understand. And that's another thing that you deal with families, or you think you are, whether it's true or not. You feel like everyone is judging you and your parenting skills.
and you feel
Really?
alone. You feel like this is you're the only people who are experiencing this. You feel so alone all the time, even though you know other
You do.
families, couples, whatever in the same or similar situation. It just feels lonely.
Mm.
It does. It's very lonely.
So how is your family
Very.
relative to you guys? Do you guys get together and hang out, or what's your family's perspective on you and your family and your son?
My family's all long distance,
Um,
so I have to travel to see all of our families. So our relationships with them are good, but they haven't really been there for the day to day.
yeah, yeah,
We usually
yeah.
travel to see all of our family, whether it's in Missouri or Tennessee or Oklahoma.
Right, right.
We do most of the traveling to see all of them. So it's usually for small periods of time over holidays, or a weekend, that kind of thing. But we don't get to see all of our family equally. There's too many and of the family, but they don't know him well.
They know him,
And
but they don't know him.
close relationship with him. When he was in Tennessee for the transition program, my sister would come and visit with him. He was about 45 minutes away from her. She would come to have lunch with him every once in a while, and that's lovely. I have her son, so his cousin or a daughter, but the part having a close relationship with him. So many closer. So one of those he hasn't had many years, and his have been on his elementary school friends in the autism class. So I've learned a lot through this,
Yeah.
that kids with autism seem to get each other a little better. But these kids have been friends since elementary school from being in that same autism
Oh, wow.
class in elementary. And there's a few of them, 3 or 4 of them, that still are friends. And they just went to the movies on Sunday. I was so happy about that. They don't get together in person often. They don't get together and hang out at each other's
Right.
houses. Never really have. But they're still friends online and they're local. So once every, I don't know, 6 months or a year, they might get together and go to a movie or go out to eat or we go bowling. And that's it. But now with SpIndL, since day one of our neurodivergent game nights, we have them monthly. He
Oh,
clicked
wow.
with these guys. They all are friends. They get together on a regular basis and even hang out. Things that
Oh,
you
interesting.
teenagers do, they're doing it for the first time in the early 20s. One girl actually graduated with him in a small charter school, and they didn't know each other at all.
Wow.
But they have clicked and they're like the best of friends now. They hang out, and
Well,
she's a female
that's a good
at
thing.
that.
Yeah,
His first real
yeah,
girl friend. And it's so exciting to watch. But
yeah.
learn from this. His friends are on the spectrum,
Hmm.
and he's been with kids on the spectrum all along.
So you're
And
comfortable with them going out? No, 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 no mother hen going on. You're comfortable when they go out like that?
absolutely, absolutely,
Oh, that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, my son is so disciplined. He's so I sometimes use the word rigid. He's very fixed on following the rules and
Hmm.
no drinking. I mean, he will not touch a drink of alcohol, and although he could, he's 22, and some
Yeah.
of the other kids might have a drink, but he doesn't at all. So I'm comfortable with him being a driver.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, it's a
Well, I
good
like the
group
girl.
of
I like
kids.
the point that he's like girls. That's a good thing. That's
That
a
he
good
he
thing to
what
say. He
that he
likes
what
Likes
girls.
girl. We see, but something that it might
Said
be
he likes
different.
girls.
Your child is him, but that's not here much about. Pointed out that there's thing that they ain't fit that a normal person. a person
True.
would have. And till the share this, and she suggested that you might want toys. And I'm not, no, I can't handle, regardless. But it's hard to physical things, aids, and also from a
Husband's
mother's
job.
point of view, son being like this. What do you think?
I hear you.
So
I hear you.
my son and this girl, they're not in a romantic relationship, at least not now, that we know of. But they've hung out a little bit, and one night they did hang out at our house alone because we were in Nashville visiting my family, and uh, her mother and I talked. Are we okay with this? They are 22. If they were in college, they'd be hanging out alone in somebody's dorm or apartment or whatever. They're not teenagers anymore.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
but we know our kids, and we both felt very comfortable with it. Well, I wouldn't say very. We were both like, I think it's okay. It was more like that we talked together and she felt fine with Christian, and I'm like, I feel fine with her being with Christian. It's up to you, as a mom of a young lady. And
Yeah.
she felt fine with it. And um those two have
Well,
just really clicked as friends. And
Mhm.
anyway, it's been cool to see.
Okay.
cynically speaking, you're okay as long as you didn't come back to the house and all the lights were out and all the doors were locked, so you couldn't get in. So,
So
let
I'll
me
just share something with you real quick.
go ahead.
We
Go
have
ahead.
cameras. We got cameras.
Hey, do they know that?
I think he does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a
Touche.
question. That's about something we don't, talk about a great deal. Um, and I know at one point I told my son that at some point he is going to be responsible for his sister because his mother and I will not be there. Right?
Yeah.
Have you had those type of discussions with your son, your other son, about the eventuality when you and your husband aren't going to be around anymore?
When
God
when
forbid.
yeah, when he was younger. Now that he's an adult, those are things that we're contemplating, because where we live now is, a distance from any family.
Hmm.
And I do feel concerns about that. I do feel that he's going to be able to be independent, but I would like for him to have a supportive family around him. I currently have guardianship of my uncle. He has dementia. He's 87, but I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum. I've suspected that for a long time, and just
Does he live
knowing
with you?
him through my life. I'm sorry.
Does he live with you all?
No, he lives in Springfield, Missouri, and I am his caregiver. I have
Oh,
guardianship of him, but I inherited this from my mother. So you were talking about, bringing home the mother to live with them. My
yeah,
mother
yeah.
brought her mother home to live with them, and my stepdad was very supportive of that. And fortunately, my grandma was very, she was very compliant and sweet. My mom also looked out for my uncle and has for a few years, and we've had to go intervene in some situations in his home. He's had squatters move into
Oh,
his
wow.
home. We've had some serious issues with people
Yeah,
taking advantage of him over
yeah.
the years. And now he has dementia. And I went to court and, got guardianship. But when she passed away, she knew that she would be leaving him in my hands. And I
Hmm.
did.
Oh, wow.
I had power of attorney that it came to me automatically when she passed away. And she knew that I was that one. I just kind of have followed in her footsteps that would be the one to care for him. And I do. I care for him from a distance, and I hire people to check in on him.
How old a guy is he?
He's 87.
Now you're
Oh,
blessed to be able to be able to do that. Not everyone has that ability, to make arrangements, especially, states away,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm getting old, Lori, so I should have written it down. We talked about a little bit about um, your son take it over. And I started with my son at a young age too. And so now it's just kind of a, he already knows that that's going to be his responsibility. But because of that, I'm more into planning for the that eventuality so that he doesn't have to come out of his pocket to take care of his sister. And
Mhm.
so I find that, people who are the parents of special needs, children tend to plan a little bit more about what's going to happen,
Yes.
in the future because we know it's
And they
going to happen
should.
sooner or later, right?
Yes.
Hopefully a whole lot later, but it is, going to happen. What else would you recommend for, couples or parents in that situation, the things that they need to do to prepare for, something like that?
Definitely they should be looking at, their family and looking at what their options are. I don't know what that's going to end up being for my son. I do, like I said, hope that he has full independence, but hopefully he'll have some family supports around him. Financially, we have a trust. It's not
Hmm.
a special needs trust, but I am considering something like that. And I've learned recently about a legacy trust with connections to a special needs trust, a spendthrift trust, and a caregiver trust. They're all kind of packaged in, and
Mm.
depending on his needs at any point in time, the funds can be funneled through the different trusts. So the spendthrift
What,
trust is probably the one that I would have for my son, but there's a special needs trust in case the funds ever needed to go into that.
so
And special,
just one point. What you said there was a caregiver trust, a special needs trust,
uh-huh,
Right.
and a
and what was the other one?
spendthrift.
Spendthrift.
See,
And
I
Now
what is
it,
hadn't heard about the spendthrift
I
trust
just
or
learned about
the
it.
caregivers trust.
I
That's
think
new.
those are new. I think those are newer, and there's an organization a man I talked to recently, and I can get you that information. But I do want to talk with him a little bit more about that. We talked for probably an hour on the phone and or on a Zoom call, and he explained those. And to me, that's a lot more appealing. And it's a legacy trust that goes at the top of that. But this organization has designed this,
Hmm.
and it's legal, and they've managed to figure out how that works together. But you would fund, at your death into that legacy trust, and then it's, of course, there'll be have to be a trustee, someone who's governing this, but then they
right?
can manage what secondary trust it goes into when it needs to.
So let me
See,
just
that's the
understand
type of
something. So,
information that we do these podcasts for, resources that most of us don't know anything about. Those are two
Right.
things I had never heard of until
Just
now,
learn
and
about
I'm
it.
curious to
absolutely,
learn more
yeah.
about them,
And
right?
and
So
you may be aware of a special needs
Right.
trust.
I
It's
have
basic.
one.
Okay, so that will protect them, and that's probably very appropriate for your daughter because it will protect her. She can have this trust, and it protects her benefits, governmental
Right,
benefits.
right.
But the spendthrift trust is not that kind of a trust. It basically just kind of manages the money and gets the money to him as needed, for what his needs are. But like my son probably won't be on governmental benefits that I know of. He might eventually if he's ever accepted for waiver, but so it just depends on your particular needs. So a special needs
can you
trust is
elaborate
probably
a little
very
bit on
appropriate for you.
the legacy trust? What was that again? Is legacy just the umbrella
Yes,
of the care
it's a yes.
special and spendthrift? That's just the umbrella for those three.
Yeah.
It kind of is, yes.
Okay.
And but they're all four, I think they're all four written up as separate trusts.
Okay.
Wow, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that. That's so you've given me some homework now.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
I'll get you some information.
okay,
So
great. Look,
spendthrift
we're coming up on an
special.
hour, and I said I wanted to take some time to give you a platform to talk about SpIndL. So I am going to open up the floor because I am definitely interested in learning more about SpIndL.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you bet. So as I said before, once we brought my son home after that transition program where we saw growth and benefits from it. We saw that we did not have resources locally. We kind of knew that. I mean, that was why we sent him to that program in the first place, but had intended for him to be going on to college. He had a scholarship at a technology college in Phoenix, and that was our dream. That was the bridge. But once we decided he wasn't going to continue college, that he was going to need to work. And so he did work part-time while he was there. But when he came home, we just didn't have the resources to help him get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And it all kind of fell on me. And then there's all this fighting between us. And it was not fun. It was not good. I had to work with him through the class that he took for certification. He should totally be certified in all of these technologies. He's brilliant. He has some successes actually in technology, but they're not paying his living. They're not paying him a living. He gets donations for some stuff that he has online. So when I just started building the ideas and talking with my friends, and I got friends to support me in this, and they became part of my board. And I said, I really want us to do something about this. I really think we need a transition program here. We need it to be available to all families, regardless of whether they can afford it or not. So this wasn't just for me. This was to make these services available to everyone, because those programs that are around the country are awesome, but they're not accessible to most families.
Right.
Too far in between.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to some families, I'm saying to most families. Okay. Most families that have children with autism. And I'm just not okay with that. So we started SpIndL. I thought about the name, put together ideas. When you start brainstorming and putting different ideas. I have some experience with design thinking. And, I put all these ideas together, and you just start building things and do this chili method where you start putting together the different ingredients, for like chili. Right. And you start combining things. And finally I came up with, I wanted a catchy name. I didn't want this big old long name. I wanted a catchy name that had some meaning. And what I finally came up with was Spectrum Independence Living, which was describing what we wanted to do. We wanted to help individuals that were neurodivergent or had autism to become independent. But while they're with us, they're not fully independent. So they're practicing independence. And that's the distinction between independent and independence. So with Spectrum Independence Living, they were going to be practicing that independence living. And I shortened it to the first letters of each word. So SpIndL, SP for spectrum, IND for independence, and L for living. So that's how I came up with SpIndL.
So how'd you come up with the staircase?
So that came when I hired a friend, or asked a friend to help me. He's a graphical designer. And I said, I need a logo for this nonprofit that I want to start. And it's SpIndL. The name is SpIndL. But I wanted to have some meaning. And I said, I think we could do something. And this was something with one of these friends who's on my board. She and I got together one day and just started brainstorming together. And I said, the S could we do a staircase? Could we do something like that? Because we're stepping them up into independence. And then if you think about a staircase, especially a spiral staircase, it has these spindles that hold up the banister for support.
That's exactly right.
So SpIndL, can be related to the spindles on a staircase that help to support that banister all the way up to the top of the stairs. And of course that supports you as a handrail, right? To go up to the stairs. So that's where that idea came from. So I found this graphic designer friend to create a logo that turned the S into a spiral staircase. And that's where that came from.
Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you. So our logo, excuse me, our mission is elevating young autistic adults to independence.
Mhm.
So again, short and catchy. I hope catchy, but that's what SpIndL's mission is, and so we're elevating them, through walking them up those stairs to independence. And so that's
Okay.
that's our mission. But the other part of the mission is to make it affordable. And we mentioned, I should have brought this up. I can read our mission statement to
I'm
you.
online looking at it right now.
Okay, why don't you read it? I'll
Well,
let you
let me
talk.
get
Why
back
don't you
to it.
read
Hold on
that
a
to?
second there. So I got your
It's all on our
perspective, our
website.
compound. What page? What do I want to go to a home or is it towards the
It'll be
top?
toward the top.
Oh, you would
Toward the
ask
top.
me to read this with no glasses on. Our mission:
Oh,
elevating young autistic adults to independence. SpIndL, affordable services that support boost young adults with neurodivergent conditions such as autism, spectrum disorders, to living independently. And the program, independent, will be coached or practice by obtaining employment. Wow, nice. Living on their own, sharing housing, and managing their own financial responsibility. Through SpIndL community partnerships, individuals will receive coaching, life skills, employment, social behavior, mentorship, safety checks, and social opportunities. Nice mission statement. I think
thank
we're on
you.
board with your mission
And
as
so
well.
our vision is that we see a world where all, all autistic adults have access to comprehensive support. So, and that's in a nutshell. Our vision statement is much longer than that, but we don't believe that financial means should dictate what
So let me ask you,
services they
so
get.
relative, so do you have actual people that come to you with job positions, like employers that come to you and request specifically for kids on the spectrum to work for them?
Not yet. So we're new. We've actually only
Okay.
been really operating and serving participants since the end of August. In
Really?
June,
This past August?
yes,
Oh,
I
yes.
wow.
did not know
So
that.
this is where we are today. So we have, let me explain our four core
Wow.
pillars, and then I can explain kind of what we've done in the last 4 months. Our four core pillars is life skills coaching,
Mhm.
teaching classes, of how to live independently, communication skills, job readiness skills, those sort of things. So we have classes. We teach classes 2 days a week. And then we have supported employment. We're working on that. Right now we're working with partners to help us with that. And we're just getting started on that, but we want to have that competency within our own staff eventually as well. But we want to support them and how to get the job, getting the job, connecting them with employers, and supporting both while they're on the job, supporting
Mhm.
both the employer and the individual, because employers need support as well on how to manage people with autism.
Yeah.
And then we will have supported housing. So getting them out into apartments, even shared apartments with a roommate, such as the one that my son was in, where we'll give them those AM and PM safety checks. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Have you taken your meds today? Do you know what your schedule is today? Do you need anything? Are you happy? Are you doing okay? And then we have social opportunities. And that's the first thing we did. That's the easy, the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
You start small. So as a nonprofit, we just got our 501c3 approval
I
from
saw that as
IRS
well.
in June.
How long did it
Yes,
take you to get that?
about 6 months.
Okay. All right.
So I incorporated in July of 2024, and then built my board and worked on all of the business modeling. We worked on a budget and all those things to
Mhm.
do the big 2020. That doesn't sound right. To do the big 501c3 application. Okay, it was the
And
big long form,
501c3.
and
Yeah.
yeah, for their 501c3. And
Yeah.
so that took us a few months to get that all together. We had to have a business plan and a
Oh,
financial
yeah.
plan. So
Tax
then,
ID. So I was looking at your board here, and it makes sense the type of people and the backgrounds they have in the real estate and stuff like that to move
Yes.
forward on your supported housing. That's a
Yes.
very strategic move that I was just paying close attention. You have a lot of heavy real estate folks I see on your board and development people. So
Mhm.
uh,
Three. I have three people involved
yeah,
in either real estate or
yeah.
mortgages or land redevelopment. And
And that
so,
ties directly to supported housing and supported employment. So yeah,
mhm,
I like
mhm.
that.
And I
Yeah.
have an attorney. I've just transitioned from one attorney to another on the board. I don't know if they're in the list still. But and then almost everyone on the board has a child with autism.
Yeah, I
Not
saw that.
all, but
Yeah,
most.
yeah.
And let's see, actually, at this point in time, they may all. Now, no, they don't. I have one that doesn't. He's a young man. But almost all of them have a young adult or have an adult, not
Yeah.
necessarily young, but have an adult child with autism.
That is a
So,
great, great common bond.
mhm. And of course, you've met Ebony. One of my staff members has
Yeah.
two profound autistic children. So the people on my board are the people in this association, whether on the board or employees. I mean, they are passionate about what we're doing. But the success that we've had so far is pretty exciting, and it's just beyond what we thought we would see. So financially, we exceeded, even though we didn't get our 501c3 until June. Financially, we exceeded our target. I don't remember what percentage, maybe by 30 or 40%. And we, so that's great because we already had an anonymous donor that it's a foundation that they were ready to give us some money, a
Wow.
grant, ready to give us the money whenever we got our 501c3.
501c.
Yes, that was the biggest blessing. They actually got us to our target for the year. They said, "How much have you raised so far?" And we told them, and they said they met, and then they said, "Okay, we're giving you the rest of the money to hit your target for the
Wow.
year." So we
Great.
had those, yeah. So we had that money at the end of June, and so that allowed us once we got the 501c3, we
501c.
were able to hit the ground running, start getting hiring employees. We hired two employees that started working for us in September, and we purchased the curriculum that we were going to teach. We've been researching all this time, working on getting ready, and then so we hired the employees in September. And is that right? September, yes. But we had our very first game night social opportunity at the end of August. And that was when, I mean, we had 8 participants plus their parents. And in that event, I held an info session for the parents. All of them, except for one, are interested in our life skills program. All of them, except for actually 2, one is going to join later. He's still actually working on high school. He's working on finishing high school, so he still needs to graduate.
Wow.
And another one, she's an older daughter, but she is a daughter of someone on my board. And so the rest of them, we had 6 start our very first cohort of life skills coaching. So it's 6 weeks teaching communication skills, community living skills, and job readiness skills. So we taught them for 6 weeks. And then we had another 3 join the next cohort, teaching the same thing for 6 weeks. So we put 2 cohorts through that. And now 8 of them just started our next cycle 2 that just
Wow.
started this week. And
Congratulations.
it's exciting. And that one didn't, just because he's got a job. So he's got a job and he's in supported employment.
Yeah.
It
And
works.
we have another one that has a job, and he's actually working at the mall where our office is. He's in the janitorial services. He has a job in supported employment. So we have 2 now in our supported employment with a partner. And so that's so exciting. But the one that did not join again in cycle 2, it's because he's sleeping during the day. He works the night shift.
Wow.
But he's still involved. He's still a participant. He's still coming to our game nights, sometimes low on sleep. But these kids keep coming back. So every social event, every month, has increased in attendance. And so we've served about 20 families,
Oh,
and
wow.
the kids keep coming back. And you know what's interesting? And this is what blows my mind, because this is not what I expected. I expected parents pushing their kids to go to SpIndL, to go to these life skills classes so that they could continue developing and learning. I
Right.
expected all to be something the parents were going to have to push them to do, convince them to do. That has not been the case.
Hmm.
I don't think that's been the case in a single one of them. They
Wow.
all want to be there. They love being together. And now those kids, several of them, get together on their own regularly. They had probably most of them had their very first New Year's Eve party. They met at one of the participants' home. They went to dinner first,
Wow.
and then they went to her house and had their very first New Year's Eve party. That was my son's first one to ever go to.
Wow.
And they get together to play games at someone's house. They get together to go to, I think they've gone to a movie. So these are new things for my son. You know, he's a participant and he's in the program and he's been going to these, but these guys made their friendships from that very first social opportunity.
Oh, wow.
And they keep coming back every month, and then more are joining us every month. And it's just been the most exciting thing. So things that we're hearing from parents, I mean, they make me want to cry, because I'm one of those parents. I'm
Uh-huh.
experiencing
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Right.
I'm
that's
seeing
the
my
bond between
son.
all of you.
Yes, I'm seeing my son go hang out with friends, not friends that I kind of initiated for him. His own friends, they're doing this on their own. And I want to cry. You know, that first night, the fact that these kids talk to each other, they had conversations.
Wow.
My son had conversations,
I hear you.
and we have pictures of them all talking, and they shared contact information. They're connected on Discord, and they have a forum now. They all communicate regularly. They talk
Wow.
and chat all the time. So this to me has just been the most amazing thing. I couldn't be more excited to see my son happy and feeling more confident. They talk. Anyway, I'm just so excited. And so I'm hearing the same thing from these parents. So one mom, she called me. This is the mother of the girl. And she said she had had several over to her house for the first time ever. And they were all playing games, and they had gone out to an arcade. They carpooled to an arcade in another town just next to our city. And then they came back to her place to play games. And her mom texted me and she says, Remedy, sorry, I shouldn't give names. Or can you edit that? My daughter hasn't had a friend over in years, a
Wow.
friend
Wow.
over in years. And she has 5 over right
Wow.
now. 5.
Wow.
And she's just so excited. And her daughter wants to have all these parties, and she's like, she can do it. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you need? You need us to go buy
Wow.
beer? Okay.
Yeah. You know
They're
what
adults.
that reminds me of, Lori? It's like, and I was explaining to Marlon that when they were growing up, we celebrated those little successes because they were so much more than little successes. And this
Mhm.
sounds exactly like that. You
Yes.
know, not something that you expected, but it has blown up, and you just extremely thrilled with how it's turned out. So
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We're so excited. Just, that part alone, the social opportunities. And let me tell you something. They need those social skills.
Right,
The rest of us have practiced every day
Yeah.
of our lives
right.
these social skills. But when they're isolated at home, they're not getting that practice. And they
Mhm.
are the ones who need the practice more than anyone, because they're not just absorbing those skills. They need to practice those skills. So these guys are finally getting that practice. And it's
Absolutely.
just so exciting. So they need those skills so they can get jobs and communicate and live independently and advocate for themselves. you know, when they
Oh,
have landlords or they have a boss or managers or
you
have
just
to work with
you teach them
HR.
life skills that are going to carry on with them.
Yes,
Sounds
they
wonderful.
have to have that. So this is just the start. So we are just so excited. But the community has been very supportive as well. You know,
Mhm.
we have people asking to volunteer, you know, how can they help? We have surprise donations show up. And that is so exciting to see a
Oh, yeah.
$1,000, $2,000, or $100, 25, 50. You know, they're just
Yeah.
out of the blue, people
Yeah.
hearing about us and going, I love what you're doing. Here's a donation. And
That 501c definitely helps, but I
yeah,
don't want to cut this short, but this has been a wonderful interview, but I would like to discuss, some things offline here. So I want to get a little
yeah.
more of your time. Uh, Not germane to our immediate conversation, but germane to some things we'd like to discuss with you as well offline.
Well,
Okay,
then I
great.
guess that's my cue. So give me a second and we'll go ahead and go through the closing real quick. First of all, thank you so much, Lori.
Absolutely.
I am so excited for you for the things that you're doing, and I am so glad I heard that speech you gave that was the impetus of this invitation, and it has been wonderful. So, well,
Yeah.
we're going to be working together one way or
Yeah.
the other.
We're
All
gonna we're
right?
gonna
Awesome.
talk about
I
that
love it.
when we get offline here.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it for this edition of the Caregivers Network. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If there's a topic you'd like for us to explore in the future, please add that to your comments. You can also check us out at cgn1.org and leave a request, a question, or comment. Thank you for joining the Caregivers Network.
And remember, Lori, to shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you'll still be among your stars.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
We'll stop.